The Arizona Diamondbacks take on the Chicago Cubs, 2:20 p.m. Eastern start time. The Cubbies are minus 145, totals 10, juice to the over. The Diamondbacks are plus $1.25 for some money line cash. And if you like them on the run line, they're minus 150, catching in the 1.5. Zach Gallen is on the bump here for Arizona. Zach Davies for Chicago. Now, guys, we're coming fresh off our fourth straight winning day on my Patreon website. We've actually hit at over 71% during that stretch. We're also perfect 3-0 in our last three Major League Baseball tier package picks on that Patreon page as well. And the good news is we have another MLB tier package pick going off here this evening. We currently have over 950 members who are signed up and active on that Patreon page. And if you want to see which one of these YouTube picks I'm actually betting on personally, link for that page is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. And despite some control issues for Zach Davies, he's still on track for double-digit wins this year. He's got 5 thus far, along with 62 strikeouts. The Cubs are also playing their best baseball at Wrigley Field. They're 28-17 straight up in the friendly confines, and they're winning 63% of their home games against National League competition. They're taking on an Arizona club who still has the fewest wins in the majors. The D-backs are currently 38 games under 500, and they're also dead last in hits allowed. Zach Gallen comes into today's contest with just one recorded win on the season, 1-4 officially overall for the year. Now, this D-back pitching staff is also dead last in the majors in runs allowed per game as well. When it comes to the total on this one, Arizona went 60% to the over in their last 10 ball games. 2 out of their last 3 on the road also got over the line. Meanwhile, the Cubs saw 2 out of their last 3 home games get over the number themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Chicago Cubs, minus 145 in the over 10. Next game, Braves, Phillies, 7:05 East. The Philadelphia Phillies are minus 165, number 7.5. Zach Wheeler for the Titans, Max Fried for Atlanta. Fried 7-5 on the year, along with 79 strikeouts. The Braves have won 2 out of their last 3, and that includes a 7-2 win over Philly just last night. Atlanta also has a winning road record against National League competition. This Braves pitching staff is in the top 10 in fewest runs allowed on the road. They're taking on a Philadelphia club who's on a 3-game losing streak, and they rank in the bottom 10 in strikeouts at the plate. And for as good as Zach Wheeler's been this year, this Philadelphia pitching staff still ranks in the bottom 10 in hits allowed per game. Now, total-wise, 8 out of Philly's last 10 outings got over the line. 4-1 to the over in their last 5 at Citizens Bank Park. Meanwhile, the Braves went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. 4-1 to the over when they travel. I'm going to lean toward the Atlanta Braves plus 1.5 and the over 7.5 runs. Next matchup, Nats, O's, 7:05 East. The Washington Nationals are minus 135, numbers 10. Patrick Corbin for Washington, Jorge Lopez for Baltimore. Now, Lopez is a dismal 2-12 on the year, 6.04 ERA and a 1.63 whip. The last place Orioles are 33 games below 500, and they have the worst record in the American League. The O's have also been playing their worst baseball at home. Winners of just 13 out of 43 at Camden Yards, and that's good for just 30% in that category. This Baltimore pitching staff also allows more runs than any other team at home. They're in the bottom 3 in hits allowed as well. They're taking on a Washington club who won 3 out of their last 4 themselves. This Nationals lineup is in the top 10 in scoring, top 3 in hits. Trey Turner is batting .320 with 18 homers and an OPS of 895. He's in the top 5 in the majors in batting average. Meanwhile, Juan Soto leads the club in ribbies. He's knocked in 54 along with 16 home runs. And when it comes to the number in this one, Washington went 70% to the over in their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, the O's saw 5 out of their last 10 get over the line themselves, 4-0 to the over in their last 4 at home. I'm going to lean toward the Washington Nationals minus 135 and the over 10 runs. The next ball game, it is going to be Blue Jays versus the Mets, 7:10 p.m. East. The New York Mets are minus 120, numbers 8.5. Tyler McGill for New York, Steven Matz for Toronto. The Matz is 8-4 with 84 strikeouts. The Blue Jays have won 4 out of their last 6, and they're in the top 3 in scoring. Vlad Guerrero is batting .329 with 32 homers and 79 ribbies. The Slugger's also leading the league with a 1.107 OPS. Marcus Semion's also hit 23 homers along with 46 extra base hits. The Toronto lineup's in the top 3 in hits on average per game. They're taking on a Mets club who lost 4 out of their last 7. And they also score the fewest amount of runs at home than any other team in the majors. They're currently dead last in home scoring, and they're averaging only 3.5 runs a game in Flushing, Queens. They're also averaging less than 6.7 hits a game at Citi Field as well. And although Tyler McGill's shown some pretty good stuff, he's only got 24 innings under his belt, and he's yet to record a victory this season. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, 3 out of New York's last 4 interleague games at home stayed under the line. The Mets are officially 29-13 to the under at Citi Field as well. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays are 29-19 to the under when they bat first. I'm going to lean toward the Toronto Blue Jays plus $1 and the under 8.5. Next game, Yankees, Red Sox, 7:10 Eastern Standard Time. The Boston Red Sox are minus 120, totals 8.5. Eduardo Rodriguez for Boston, Garrett Cole for New York. But as good as Cole's been, he's still got 4 losses on the year, and the Yankees have struggled in divisional play. Now to New York's 45 divisional games this year, they've gotten the W only 19 times, and that's good for only 42% in that category. This Yankee lineup's also in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 10 in hits. They're taking on a first-place Red Sox club who's 29-19 at Fenway, and they also win nearly 70% of their divisional home games. This Boston lineup's in the top 5 in scoring, top 3 in hits. Xander Bogaerts is hitting .312 with an OPS of .906. He's in the top 20 in the majors in both of those stats. Meanwhile, Rafael Devers is in the top 10 in both RBI and OPS as well. The third baseman's got an OPS of .921, and he's knocked in 74 runners. The Sox have Eduardo Rodriguez on the hill here today. He's 7-5 with 112 strikeouts in just over 95 innings. When it comes to the total, the Sox went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings. They're also 20-17 to the over against the AL East. I'm going to lean toward the Boston Red Sox minus 120 and the over 8.5. Next game, Pods, Fish, 7:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The San Diego Padres are minus 160 with the total at 8. Joe Musgrove for San Diego. Zach Thompson for Miami. Now, Thompson's got himself a 1.93 ERA and a 1.00 whip. The Marlins also have a winning home record against National League opponents. They're in the top 5 in fewest home hits allowed, and they're giving up just 3.5 runs per contest at Lone Depot Park. They're taking on a Padres team who has a losing road record against National League competition. The Padres dropped 4 out of their last 8, and they're in the bottom half of the league in road walks allowed. They've also averaged only 3.5 runs a game in their last 10 meetings with Miami. And as good as Joe Musgrove's numbers have been, he comes into today's contest with a 5-7 record. Now, total-wise, the Pods went 27-20 to the over when they travel. Meanwhile, the Marlins saw 7 out of their last 10 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Miami Marlins plus 1.5 in the over 8 runs. Next ball game, Cards, Reds, 7:10 East. The Cincinnati Reds are minus 160 with a total at 9.5 flat. Tyler Mahle for Cincinnati, Wade LeBlanc for St. Louis. Now the Cardinals are on a 2-game winning streak, 5-1 straight up in their last 6. This Cardinals pitching staff is in the top 10 in fewest hits allowed. They're holding their opponents to under 7.5 hits per 9. They're taking on a Cincy club who dropped 5 out of their last 6 themselves. The Cincy pitching staff is in the bottom 3 in runs allowed at home. They've also got a losing home record against National League competition. Total-wise, 4 out of the Reds' last 6 at the Great American Ballpark got over the number. Cincy's also 14-7 to the over in their divisional games at home as well. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are 9-5 to the over in their divisional road games themselves. I'm going to lean toward the St. Louis Cardinals plus 1.5 and the over 9.5 runs. Next matchup, Rays, Indians, 7:10 p.m. East. The Tampa Bay Rays are minus 120, numbers 9. Josh Fleming for Tampa Bay, Zach Plesac for Cleveland. Now, Plesac comes into today's game with a 4.19 ERA. The Indians have lost 3 out of their last 4. And they're in the bottom 5 in the league in hits. The Indians are averaging less than 7.5 hits a game. They're also going up against a Tampa club who's on a 3-game winning streak. And they also got the W in 7 out of their last 10. This Tampa Bay lineup is in the top 5 in road scoring. And they're led by Austin Meadows, who's in the top 10 in the majors in RBI. The Sluggers knocked in 66 runners thus far in the year. Meanwhile, Brandon Lowe's hit 21 home runs and knocked in 49. This Tampa Bay pitching staff is in the top 10 in fewest runs allowed. They're averaging nearly double-digit strikeouts a game as well. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, 3 out of Tampa's last 4 road games got over the line. The Rays are also 32-17 to the over when they travel. Meanwhile, the Indians are 27-17 to the over at Progressive Field. I'm going to lean toward the Tampa Bay Rays minus 120 and the over 9. Next matchup, Angels versus the Twins, 8:10 Eastern start time. The LA Angels are minus 130, totals 10. Alex Cobb for Los Angeles, Jay Happ for Minnesota. Now Happ comes into today's game with a 6.15 ERA and a 1.50 whip. The Twins are currently 15 games under 500. And they're in the bottom 3 in runs allowed per contest. They also have a losing record at Target Field. They're taking on an Angels club who's in the top 10 in scoring, top 5 in hits. Shohei Ohtani's leading the majors in home runs. The Phenoms hit 34 homers and knocked in 74. Sho's also in the top 3 in the majors in both RBI and OPS. He's currently got an OPS of 1.028. Meanwhile, David Fletcher, he's cracked the top 10 in the majors in batting average. The third baseman's hitting .314, which is 7th in the majors in that category. This LA lineup's in the top 5 in fewest road strikeouts at the plate. And when it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of LA's last 6 road games stayed under the line. They're also 22-19 to the under against American League competition on the road. I'm going to lean toward the LA Angels minus 130 and the under 10 runs. Next ball game, White Sox, Brewers, 8:10 Eastern Standard Time. The Milwaukee Brewers are minus 130, total 7.5 juice to the over. Freddie Peralta for Milwaukee, Lucas Giolito for Chicago. Now, Giolito's got 8 wins thus far in the season, 3.90 ERA and a 1.11 whip. The righties also struck out 133 batters. The first place White Sox are 20 games over 500, and they lead the majors in striking batters out on the road. The Chicago pitching staff is fanning 9.9 batters a game when they travel. And that's certainly bad news for Milwaukee because their lineup's in the bottom 3 in the majors in strikeouts per game. The Brewers are fanning over 9.7 times per contest. And they're also being held to less than 7.4 hits a game. Milwaukee's lost 5 out of their last 6 home games. When it comes to the number in this one, 4 out of Milwaukee's last 7 interleague games at home got over the number. Meanwhile, Chicago went 7-3 to the over in their last 10 outings themselves, 3-0 to the over in their last 3 on the road. I'm going to lean toward the underdog, Chicago White Sox, plus $1.10, and the over 7.5. Next contest, Rangers versus the Astros, 8:10 p.m. East. The Houston Astros are minus 210, totals 8.5. Jay Odorizzi for Houston, Colby Allard for Texas. Allard's just 2-7 on the season, along with a 4.06 ERA. The last place Rangers are also 27 games under 500. They've gotten the W in only 26% of their road games. This Texas lineup's in the bottom 10 in hits on average per game. They're scoring only 3.8 runs a game when they travel. Texas is taking on a first-place Houston club who's 19 games over 500. And they've also gone 31-20 straight up at Minute Maid Park. The Astros are leading the majors in runs and hits. Michael Brantley's first in the majors in batting average. The outfielder is hitting .331 with an OPS of .864. Meanwhile, Jose Altuve has hit 23 homers and knocked in 59. The little guys in the top 25 in homers, RBI, and OPS. Meanwhile, defensively, the Astros are in the top 10 in fewest runs allowed per 9. Jake Odorizzi's averaging nearly a strikeout an inning and also comes into today's game with a 1.13 whip. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, Houston's 24-14 to the over in divisional play. They're also 30-21 to the over at Minute Maid Park. Meanwhile, the Rangers are 22-15 to the over in divisional play themselves. Texas is also 60% to the over in all of their road games. I'm going to lean toward the Houston Astros minus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next matchup, Tigers versus the Royals, 8:10 East. The Kansas City Royals are minus 120, numbers 10.5. Chris Bubic for Kansas City. Willie Peralta for Detroit. Now Peralta's 3-1 with a 1.64 ERA and a .94 whip. The Tigers have won their last 7 straight. They held their opponents to 4 runs or less 6 times during that span. They're taking on a last-place Royals club who's 16 games below 500. And they've been getting pulverized in divisional play at home. The Royals have gotten the W in just 6 out of 20 divisional games at Kauffman Stadium. This Kansas City pitching staff is in the bottom 5 in runs allowed, bottom 3 in hits allowed at home. Chris Bubic comes into today's start with a 2-4 record and a 5.03 ERA. The lefties walked 33 batters in just over 62 innings, and he's got a whip of 1.52. Now, total-wise, Kansas City went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings, 13-7 to the over in their divisional games at home. Meanwhile, the Tigers are 28-20 to the over when they travel. I'm going to lean toward the Detroit Tigers plus $1 in the over 10.5. Next game, Pirates versus the Giants, 9:45 Eastern first pitch. The San Francisco Giants are minus 195, totals 8.5. Johnny Cueto for San Francisco, Chad Kuhl for Pittsburgh. Now Kuhl's just 3-5 with a 4.31 ERA and a 1.37 whip. He's also walked 33 batters compared to just 45 strikeouts. The last place Pirates have the second fewest wins in the National League. They're 24 games below 500, and they're also dead last in the majors in scoring. The Buccos are putting just 3.6 runners across the plate a game. The Pirates are squaring off against a first-place San Francisco club who won 7 out of their last 10. And they play exceptional baseball at home. The Giants are 30-13 at Oracle Park, and they're leading the majors in fewest walks per 9 on their home field. Johnny Cueto's 6-5 on the year with 70 strikeouts. The Giants allow only 3.6 runs a game. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, the Giants are 20-16 to the over against the National League at home. Meanwhile, the Pirates went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves, 5-2 to the over in their last 7 on the road. I'm going to lean toward the San Francisco Giants minus 1.5 in the over 8.5. Next matchup, Rockies versus the Dodgers, 10:10 p.m. East. The LA Dodgers are minus 280, totals 9. David Price for Los Angeles, Chichi Gonzalez for Colorado. Now Chichi's just 3-6 on the year with a 5.99 ERA. The righty's also got himself a 1.47 WHIP. The Rockies still have the fewest road wins in all of baseball, and as a matter of fact, they haven't even reached double digits yet. They're just 9-34 straight up when they travel, and that's good for only 20% in that particular category. Colorado's dead last in the league in road hits, and they're scoring just 2.8 runs a game when they bat first. They're taking on the Dodger Club, who's 31-17 on their home field. The Dodgers have also been really good within divisional play. They're 27-16 against a competitive NL West. LA's leading the league in striking batters out at home. They're fanning 10.8 batters a game at Dodger Stadium. And of course, David Price, he's back in action here this evening. He's 4-0 with a 3.12 ERA. The Dodgers are in the top 3 in the league in fewest hits allowed per game. They're holding their opponents to only 3.4 runs a game on their home field. Now, total-wise, LA's 24-19 to the under against National League competition at home. Meanwhile, the Rockies are 25-18 to the under when they travel themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Los Angeles Dodgers minus 1.5 and the under 9 runs. With that, guys, now it's time for our next and final matchup. It is going to be A's versus the Mariners, 10:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The Oakland A's are minus $1.25, total 7.5. Frankie Montas for Oakland, Yusei Kikuchi for Seattle. And as good as the Cooch has been this year, the Mariners have lost 4 out of their last 7. And their lineup ranks dead last in the majors in hits on average per game. The Mariners are also being held to just 6.2 hits per contest on their home field. The Seattle lineup is also scoring only 3.8 runs a game at T-Mobile Park. They're taking on an Oakland club who's on a 3-game winning streak. And they also got the W in 7 out of their last 10. Oakland's in the top 10 in fewest hits allowed on the road. They give up just 3.7 runs a game when they travel. They also have Frankie Montas on the mound here today, who's got 8 wins already on the season, along with 112 strikeouts. Now, total-wise, 4 out of Oakland's last 5 road games stayed under the line. They also saw 80% of their last 10 outings at any location stay under the total as well. Meanwhile, Seattle's 4-1 to the under in their last 5 at home. I'm going to lean toward the Oakland A's minus $1.25, and the under is 7.5. And with that, guys, now it's time to dive into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my Patreon website. I like the Chicago Cubs minus 145 over 10. Atlanta plus 1.5 over 7.5. Washington minus 135 over 10 runs. Toronto plus $1 under 8.5. Boston minus 120 over 8.5. Miami plus 1.5 over 8 runs. St. Louis plus 1.5 over 9.5. Tampa Bay minus 120 over 9 runs. LA Angels minus 130 under 10. Chicago White Sox plus $1.10 over 7.5. Houston minus 1.5 over 8.5. Detroit plus $1 over 10.5 runs. San Francisco minus 1.5 over 8.5. LA Dodgers minus 1.5 under 9 runs. Before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are coming off our 4th straight winning day on my Patreon website. We've hit at over 71% during that stretch. We're also 3-0 in our last 3 MLB tier package picks on that Patreon page as well. I'm going to lean toward the Oakland A's minus $1.25 and the under 7.5. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the our shout out of the day. And that's going to go to James G, who actually turned a $9 parlay into nearly $1,200 on an 8-leg parlay yesterday. So shout out to James G. Thank you for sharing with us. Certainly a good win. Congratulations. That is a great victory there. Now, if I were you and I was back in my single days, I'd probably just press all that up and throw it into another parlay. But now that I'm married, I'd probably just take the wife out to a nice dinner and maybe save a couple hundred of that and press it up. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my Patreon website, just keep in mind that Patreon is going to bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of July. Now, if you continue to stay opted in, Patreon is going to bill you again on August 1st. And when they do that, you're going to get access all the way through the end of August. But most important, I always say, guys, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Friday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.